Hello everybody, this is my last one for today, and then I'm going to hopefully get these up and I'm going to put them out on Twitter and put some links up to them on my Feldenkrais download page, etc., so that you can perhaps find out a bit more about them. So one of the things that I was doing today was exploring my capability to write things on pieces of paper for my webcam, because if I put them on a piece of paper, as I've discovered before, it comes up back to front. So I have discovered I have this incredible capability to be able to write backwards. So I come from a background of being a physiotherapist. Where are we? UK Healthcare Professions Council registered physiotherapist with qualified in 1977, oodles of experience, and in this kind of work, experience counts because it means you've treated and worked with tens of thousands, at least I have tens of thousands of people in all manner of situations and circumstances. So I then go off and I do the 4-year basic Feldenkrais course. I then go off and do other training courses with various other different people and add on extra skills, etc., etc. And it means that when I'm working, I'm still a Healthcare Professions Council registered physiotherapist, but I work with people in a very, very different way. And I consider myself to be very lucky because I have small numbers of people who come to me who are very interested in this whole idea of knowing themselves, getting to know themselves much more deeply. This approach works really well for those people who want a little bit more in depth, who are high performers in life. It might be that these are athletes and they just want that little extra bit of tweaking so that they can get that tiny percentage outcome difference, which means that they go faster, throw better, they move themselves more effectively, and it could be the shift between a silver and a gold medal. Or you know, in a professional athlete, it might be to do with capability. So knowing thyself is something that all of the people who come to see me have in common. So when I'm working, mostly the thing that I'm working with is habits. All right, so as I said in the last little recording that I did, habits are cool, habits are brilliant, habits are what enable us to function. Once we can do something, usually we stick to that habit. So I have a habit of the way that I speak, I have a habit of the way that I hold my head, the way I move myself, my gestures. These are things that I've learned to do over time, and now they've become quite strongly ingrained habits. And they're fine. It's fine to have a habit. It's fine to have a habit as long as what's going on is that you don't have issues with the habit. So if you've got an issue with a habit and it begins to start to cause you a problem, that's when it might be that you decide that you want to go a bit deeper, you want to explore the habit, and you want to find out how it could have a relationship with what it is that you're going on. So, what is good and what's positive? Gosh, you can almost read that. So what's good and what's positive? Well, habits are good and they're positive. If you do something though, and you begin to start to only do something, let's say you sit at the desk all day long. You never get up and you never walk around. You sit in the car on the way home, you curl up at night in bed, and then you decide you want to reach up, right up high, and what might happen is you discover you can't lift your arms up as well as you used to. You can't lengthen your spine, you can't bend back the way that you used to, because you're so used to sitting in a certain curled up position during the day that it's not working for you anymore. So at that point you might decide what's good or what's positive for you sitting at the desk during the day isn't so good and positive if you suddenly decide that you want to have a more active lifestyle. You can still take some of the things that you do and you can keep them. You don't need to throw everything out. So it might be you want to just make a few little subtle, gentle shifts and changes. So what have we been talking about so far today? Well, I'm going to run through. So starting at the top, I'm talking about knowing thyself. That says habits, not hobbits. Hobbits has got 2 B's. Habits. Go deeper. It doesn't say growing, that says gain. gain awareness. Okay, so it says gain aware. Become more aware of what it is that you do. Get more skills, and then learn how to change. So before, I was talking a little bit about physio, and I was saying what happens in physio as opposed to what we do with the Feldenkrais work. In physiotherapy, commonly what happens is that somebody comes into a clinical session and they are shown how to stand correctly. So they are shown what they're doing wrong. So they're told, well, you're standing on your left leg. Stand like this, stand with your weight on both legs. And look, you're standing with that right shoulder down. Pull that shoulder up, hold yourself like this, tighten these muscles, this is how you should stand. Because the thing is that when you have a habit, it feels comfortable, okay? So if you've got a habit, like we did the interlinking fingers thing, where if you link your fingers like this, that's your habit. Just put them together, that's your habit. It just fits together, it feels nice and comfortable. Shift it across, and yes, it's something you can do, but it doesn't feel so nice. And what's going to happen is that if you put your arms down, your hands down, and you ask yourself to put your fingers together again, you're going to go straight back into doing your habit. So habits are going to tend to recur. So in Feldenkrais work, what we do is we spend some time going more deeply into the pattern that you have. So instead of immediately saying, well, stop doing it this way, start doing this way, we say, well, that's interesting, but look, when you have your hands like this, what happens? How does your elbow, how does the movement of this forward part of one elbow fit with that? How does that fit with your shoulders? Which shoulder wants to go higher? Which ones wants to go lower? How does that fit with your rib cage? How does it fit with your breathing? We go deeper. I think, no, I haven't thrown go deeper on the floor. We go deeper. Because when we're talking about the structure of the whole system, we're talking about the entire musculoskeletal system. So we're not just talking about a shoulder or a neck or a knee. We're talking about the whole system. So if you get an area of discomfort within the body, we're looking at the whole global pattern of the way that you use yourself, the way that you respond to the environment, the way that you react in terms of emotion to what's going on around you, the whole dynamic within your family or your work environment has an effect on your whole system. You know, somebody walking through the door and saying to you, you've got a pay rise, here's a bonus, you know, your whole system is going to change. Wow, oh, that's really nice. Somebody walking through the door and saying to you, I'm sorry, but you're going to be made redundant next Thursday. Wham, that has a whole effect on your system as well. So everything that goes on has an effect on our entire physiology. How we move and use ourselves is also global. It's a global pattern. You sit at the desk all day and you're not used to actually lengthening out your hips. You're not used to lengthening your spine. You come to want to do that as part of what you do walking down the road, and your habit is going to be that maybe your legs are not used to extending away behind you. So you decide that you want to take up jogging or running. And what happens is your body isn't used to doing that movement, and it might be that you begin to start to get issues. So you need to, she says, holding it up the wrong way, you need to go deeper. You need to go a little bit further in if you want to, but this isn't something that you've got to do. If all you want to do is get to the point where you've done your first aid, so in other words, you've got an issue that's causing you a musculoskeletal problem, it's causing you back pain, neck pain, shoulder pain, you've damaged a shoulder or a knee or whatever. That's a physio approach, it's a clinical approach. How do we get rid of those symptoms? It's like the car has got some wear and tear on the inside of a tyre. What do? You take it to the garage, you have a new tyre put on. Okay, that's got new tyres, no problem. But it's the tracking on the system that might be out. So what happens is that you run that car for another 5,000 miles, 4,000 miles, whatever, and what happens? The tyre starts to wear in exactly the same tread pattern again. Why? Because you've not addressed the underlying issue, all right? But the underlying issue isn't about attempting you swiftly and quickly to rip yourself away from what is a natural, highly developed, habit and pattern that you have spent years and years and years training yourself to do because you don't know you do it in the first place. So if you have a habit and you really, really, really want to achieve something to a greater extent, you need to go deeper. You need to think about what it is, what serves you well with that habit, what's good with it, what really works, what really, really works well about, say, having your habit of sitting at the desk the way you do. It might be you've got everything set up on your desk that fits completely with your habit. It might be that you use one eye. You're dominant in one eye. I'm left eye dominant. So I tend to turn my head this way when I look at things. If I put things out on this side of my desk when I'm working and I have to keep turning my head over here and back, what happens is I get neck pain. I like turning my head this way and looking out of this eye. And I know that therefore if I put things over here, it's a lot easier for me to glance over. All right? But that's because I spent a bit of time and I know that that's positive. I've got a lot of work to do. I'll put things over to that side. I won't put things over here. So there are always ways that you can think about how your habit works well for you. Now, putting those to one side. So I'm going to hold this up again. So one of the most fundamental things that we do in the work that Moshe Feldenkrais came up with, one of some of the really the most fundamental differences, if you like, between this and a classic clinical approach, is to know thyself and actually really luxuriate in those habits and patterns and to be proud of them because they work for you. Maybe to then go a little bit deeper into those habits and patterns, because one of the things with habits is that if you've got a repertoire, a way of using yourself, and you use yourself in habits, gradually over time what can happen is that your repertoire can reduce down and down and down. Gain more awareness, become a bit more aware of what it is that you actually do. Learn how it fits in with everything else that you do. Learn how the pattern that you have that you use when you sit at the desk, learn how it fits in with how everything is laid out on the desk. Learn how that pattern fits in with how you sit when you're in the car. Learn how it fits in with how you've got your sitting room laid out and where your TV is. Look at all of these different things, because what you'll find is that that pattern isn't in isolation. It runs through everything that you do. All right? Gain more skills. What do I mean by more skills? Well, if you've got an awareness that you start to do things a certain way, one of the great things about that is that you can then actually say to yourself, okay, so I'm going down this route of becoming more habituated. I'm sitting with my head turned more and more over to the side. Well, how can I address that rather than just saying, oh, well, I'm sitting like this, oh, let's just turn my head this way. Well, the whole of the rest of my system is going to be set up to fit with that habit. That goes back to going deeper. How does the position that I turn my head so that my eyes are fixated in one position to look at the screen, how does that affect the way that I take my weight on my pelvis? How does that affect me if I want to ski and I want to turn to one side? Which side would I like to turn to? How does that affect me if I'm running and I want to change direction? Develop more skills, because if you want to change, and a lot of people don't really want to change. They want things to be exactly the same way that they were before, which is fine. You can do that. You can take some drugs that are going to maintain your pain, or you can take some anti-inflammatories, or you can risk that if you do the same thing over and over, you're not going to get a recurrence. But if you really want to make some changes, little changes, what you need to do is to have this awareness, because unless you have an awareness shift, you can't make true change. So it's the old, and pardon my French because I don't speak French very well, plus ça change, plus c'est la même chose, which roughly speaking translates into the more things change, the more they stay the same. Because if you've only got this much awareness, and what happens is that you don't go deeper and explore and find out more and say, if this is what you know, you can only operate between these areas. If you increase your awareness and you maybe bring in a few more skills, you've got more possibility, you've got more options available to you. So there's a strong probability that if you want to change, you really can make a shift and a change. And then, coming back to this, that means that because you've made a change in your capability, it means everything else has an effect, which means at an identity level, you can move yourself from being somebody, say, who doesn't believe that they have any control or power over changing the amount of pain that they have, to being somebody who has a very different belief and identity up here. If you're an athlete and say you have the sense that the only way you can improve what you do is with one certain form of training, and then you go away and you learn a little bit about what your habits and patterns are, and something happens and you think, oh wow, because of course when I run I always do that, or when I cycle I'm always looking over that right shoulder, I never look over this left shoulder, or I don't allow my hips to sit equally, or I don't move myself from my rib cage. What can happen is with this awareness shift, you get a shift in your capabilities. And one of the great things about having a shift in your capability is it has an effect on every area. But the biggest thing that happens is it has an effect on your own sense of being in control, being able to do something which means that you're having an effect on everything else that goes on around you. So I hope that's helpful. And yeah, I'll be putting these up and feedback to me. But as I say, I'm really quite impressed with my capability that I've discovered that I have to write backwards. And so what's good and what's positive? That's the thing I will leave you with. When you're thinking about your habits, your capabilities, your ability to write upside down and back to front, what's good about that? What's positive? Well, for me, it's very useful to be able to write upside down and back to front, because it means that I can put things up and go deeper, and I can help you to go deeper as well. So I'll put this up and hopefully we'll get some feedback. Take care.